Just because I love you, it don't mean I trust you. Everybody not to be trusted. Everybody around me thugging. Everybody around me drugging. Everybody around me hustling. Everybody know not to bring no new riggin' around me. They say I be bugging. Got racks in the go yard luggage. Just cause I love you, it don't mean I trust you. Everybody not to be trusted.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is another episode of Uncut with Q, and I'm your host, Quentin Flores. And so, guys, if it's your first time listening, as always, we ask that you share the shit out of the show. So if you get value from this show and you feel that this has changed your perspective in any type of way, man, we need as much love as possible on YouTube. It's probably our least streamed platform. Most of you guys that listen to this show, you're streaming it. It's all good, you know, but you can also go to the YouTube channel. It's literally YouTube Quentin Flores, and the Uncut with Q show can be streamed there, and you guys can drop your questions in the comment section and we'll answer them live on the show. Anyways, guys, you know, we have different types of shows that we do. So if you're first time listening, literally just go through our section of shows. I think right now it's like episode 76. And so, you know, we've been doing this now for a little over a year. Guys, each show is different. We have Mindset with Mitzi. We talk about certain things that are popping off on the internet. My buddy and I do a Q&A, so you guys can go to quentinflores.com/askq, and you can drop your questions in there. We will answer them live on the podcast. We try to be as committed as we can, but there's short form episodes and there's long form. This is one of the ones that is a long episode, all right? So with that being said, typically, guys, with these ones, my favorite, we bring somebody in, and these people have either overcame massive hardships, built something sustainable, it's a crazy business, or they've overcame insane trauma in their life. We had a guy on the show the other day who got struck by lightning and died, and then woke up and built a moving truck company and sold it for $3 or $4 million at 23 years old. Crazy. That's right? Crazy. So like things like that happen on this show. All right. And so with that being said, man, I have a special guest. Go on and introduce yourself to the world, bro.
Hey, how are you? My name's Rico D'Onofri, and thanks for having me over.
That's so awesome, dude. You know, I met Rico. Where did I meet you? At Brent's house, right?
You did, yeah.
I did. So my friend
Texas,
Brent
Houston.
Franklin lives in this thing called the Darth Vader house, and that's in Houston.
Yep.
All right, and it literally looks like Darth Vader's helmet. So from a specific angle, you can see it, but it needs the lights. You know what I'm saying? But then you're like, oh shit, it's Darth Vader's helmet. But my buddy Brent, super fucking cool dude, and he does a lot of stuff in oil. He has multiple different types of businesses. I met Rico over there, and Rico helps my guy Brent with a lot of different things. They're partnered in multiple businesses. So, dude, Rico, I mean, obviously you got the accent, man. Tell everybody where you're from. Dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, it's a bit of a confusing story, but I'm actually Italian, originally Italian.
Wow.
And immigrated to the UK in the mid-'80s. My parents wanted to open an Italian restaurant over in London. So we spent quite a few years over there, and then that's where I picked up the accent. So when I first arrived in the UK, couldn't speak a word of English, got thrown into high school. You know, the usual stories of trying to learn a new culture, new language, and it was really challenging. Really challenging. So to be honest with you, for quite some time, I was probably resentful of my parents of, you know, leaving the beautiful Italy and the pasta and everything else, and then coming over to, you know, to a UK, which is again a beautiful place, but has a completely different culture.
It's like a shock, right?
Yeah, massive shock.
When you got to the UK and you started kind of getting involved with it, how long did it take you to learn English?
Ooh, to learn English, I would say to a level where I could actually communicate with people, you were probably looking at about 18 months.
Why did you guys move from Italy there?
So they wanted to open an Italian restaurant, and the family came from not very much in Italy. And, you know, back in the 80s, things were very, very difficult, especially in southern parts of Europe as well.
Wow.
So they found a place through family. There was already family members that had gone over to the UK. And then at that point, it was right, let's try it. So we actually got told that we were going on holiday. And the next thing we found that we were actually staying there. So it was like, wait a minute. Yeah.
I think that's crazy to make that kind of jump for a restaurant, Rico. Because I heard statistically that 86% of most restaurants fail within the first 3 years of business.
Very true.
Did that happen to y'all's restaurant?
No.
Wow.
I've got to be honest with you. My parents had this little restaurant that was like 9 tables, couldn't sit very many people. And then from there, it just scaled. It was just, you know, it was the culture, it was the food. And it worked for them. And in the end, they had people like Princess Diana, Prince Charles, who's now King Charles, eating at these restaurants. And I'm not talking, these are not posh restaurants. These are the sort of, you know, hole in the wall type place. But the food was that good and the atmosphere that people wanted to just be there. So there was queues all the time. And they ended up opening 2 or 3. And then in 2001, they sold out. And and sort of semi-retired at that point.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, Princess Diana, a lot of people don't know this, is one of my favorite influential speakers of all time.
Really?
Yes.
That's
One
amazing.
of my favorite quotes from Princess Diana. She said, somebody asked her, so what is your job
Yeah.
as princess? She said, I knew what my job was. It was to go out there, meet the people, and love them. And I love that quote so much. I
very
live
true.
by that. I literally live by that. Anybody that I meet, you get a piece of me as if I've known you your whole life, you know? And I truthfully believe that's probably why you're sitting across from me right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, when we connected, it was like immediate, like I had to get to know this dude. Like, even if we never do business together,
Thank you.
you message me and you check on my family. And we aren't even close like that. I don't even have friends that I've been best friends with that do that for me. You know, and so maybe it's also you come from a different time and a different culture as well.
Yes.
You know? You look very young.
Yep.
And so it's crazy, you know, but I guess when you got to the UK, you started learning all of these different things.
Yeah,
At what
yeah.
point did you even get introduced to the idea of like business?
Well, what happened was obviously my parents wanted someone to take the business over, and I ran a million miles. Did not take the business over. You know, the restaurant business is real tough. I mean, I was made to work. We had a coffee shop in Italy and whatever else, and I was made to work 7-8 hours a day when I was from 10 years old. By 13, I was the human dishwasher, and I was getting $2 a week.
Wow.
So it was a tough upbringing, just like everyone else. And you know, I know there's a lot of stories out there, but it was, and everyone has their own story of what it was like. But you try and help your family as much as possible. So I did till around about the age of 17. And then I really needed to find my own way at that point. So my story goes, I actually started in debt collection. That was my first real job. There was 2 guys that used to come into my mum and dad's restaurant every lunchtime, you know, shirts, ties on. Strange. What are these guys up to? They're in here every single day. They eat big meals, you know, bottle of wine. I've got to ask them what they're doing. So I did. And they said, yeah, we own a debt collection company. I said, great. Have you got any jobs? And they went, yeah, absolutely. So I went for an interview, got a job, and the rest was history. That's where my career actually started, back in
debt collecting.
In debt collecting, yeah.
I'm not going to lie, man. If you called me about a debt, I'd probably pay it.
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
just saying, you got the voice, bro.
Yeah, in those days it was a little bit different, but yeah,
see.
this was early 90s.
Wow.
So that was the start of my career, and then at that point, you get good at something that you do, and you get into management, and then fast forward again, you know, a few different roles, and back into sort of the late 1990s, became the operations director for Hewlett-Packard, the PC company for the whole of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that was my real sort of role, you know, as a senior C-suite exec, where sitting on the board, giving direction, helping people, et cetera, et cetera.
So you were sitting on a board of directors, like early 90s, late 2000s,
early 1990, early 2000s.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah.
I remember, dude, like I was 9 or 10 years old, man.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I fucking wasn't doing none of that.
Now I feel real old.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm 33 now, and I've done a lot over the last 10 years in business.
Yeah.
You know, I remember outside of the podcast, you were saying that life starts at 40. I love that too, right?
It does.
And also, I believe that it starts when you start a business. Because, you know, I've met people, Rico, that I've mentored in business to just get going in real estate, right? And I've mentored people that are 40, 50, even I think the oldest guy I ever mentored was 61. And it's crazy because I was 25, 26, 27 at the time, showing them how to flip houses, showing them how to raise money to flip the houses, and showing them construction. And as I was like progressing in my own personal adventure, I just thought like, wow, that's day 1 for him. This is like day fucking 3,000 for me doing what I've been doing. And so, you know, like just like kind of put it into perspective for me a little bit. I'm like, wow, in essence, mindset wise, I'm older than them because I have more experience in this field than they do.
Yep.
And so I think that's why they pay for that experience. And I might not be a C-suite level mentor, but I know how to flip houses, and I know the practicality behind it. But I know that this is like a different level. When you're talking board of the director, what were you in charge of in that company?
I mean, it's operations across the whole of Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
How many employees are we talking?
So about 2,500 at that point. Yeah, it was difficult. It was challenging because, you know, there was a lot of things changing. You got to understand, you know, the internet was not where it is today.
That's true.
So a lot of people were learning a lot of things real fast, and time just time just flies by when things are moving really well. And accelerating, then we went to, you remember when people were trying to get a dial note to just connect to the internet, you'd have the modem and it'd start bleeping away.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, now we can't even wait 5 seconds on our phones for things to just charge up or load up, and we get frustrated. So back then it was really challenging, trying to communicate with people when you didn't have the communication channels that we have today was super tough. So yeah.
I think that's insane, man, but you're right. I had learned a while ago of this concept, and it was like the 4 waves of wealth and where they came from.
Yeah.
And so like the first wave of wealth, and this is as controversial as it is, but this was what America was built on, was slavery. Mm-hmm. That was the first, and that's still somewhat around today, which is crazy to think about, right? That was the first one. The second one was the workforce.
Yep.
It was the Americans getting underpaid, while the first age of billionaires that were American billionaires anyway. I'm talking about Rockefeller. I'm talking about Thomas Edison. I'm talking about these inventors that built something, Henry Ford, right?
Yep.
These guys all had sweatshops. There was no cap on how much these people would work. They were selling cars for $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 while paying workers 2 to 3 cents an hour to get a job done, because inflation and the dollar was worth so much,
Yep.
There's this funny movie that I watched. It's called like A Million Days to Die in the Wild West or whatever the hell. It's from Seth MacFarlane. It's the fucking guy who made Family Guy,
Yeah.
And it's so funny, right? Because this guy is just like, he bet this other dude, and they're living in the West, so it's like 1800s, and he's just like pulls out a $1, right? Like one whole dollar, and everybody's all, it's like, take your hat off,
got
son.
a dollar.
It's like, take your hat off, son. There's a dollar bill. And I was like, holy shit. But that's how crazy it was to have $1 back then,
Very true.
And so, you had people that were being used and abused. I mean, these guys were working, and there was no cap on how many hours they could work. I could stay at the factory for 5 days straight beyond the clock working.
That's horrible.
And so that's the second wave of wealth. The third wave of wealth was www. It was the internet.
That's
so
right.
you had billionaires like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, who really pivoted on that with PayPal, and what Mark did with Facebook and connecting everybody.
That's
And
right.
it's like a
Yep.
college thing that turned out to be a way that everybody could be connected. And then you had Bill Gates, who was just inventing things. Steve Jobs,
Constantly. Yep.
and so like these guys built their wealth off of the internet, and I love that so much, because that was the third wave of wealth. Now the fourth one, what we're in right now, it's attention. It's
So true.
attention. Think about people like Jake Paul, Logan Paul. Those two guys
Yep,
are like
absolutely. The
kids.
boxing now,
Yeah, they're
YouTubers
boxing.
now boxers.
Yeah, it's it's the fact that you even know
Yep.
that is crazy to me. You know what I mean? And it's like those guys, they built their platform on that 6-second thing. What was it called, Trey? The
Vine.
six. It was not Prime. It was a 6-second
Vine.
video. Vine,
Yeah.
Vine, right? And so Vine had came out. It was Logan Paul. Logan Paul became famous on that, brought his little brother with him. Next thing you know, they started opening up Pokemon card packs, and now they have their own drink, which is Prime, which is
that's
great.
right.
Love it. Logan, you're awesome. And then, Jake had gone the boxing route after his brother Logan did, and took it to a whole nother level by knocking out retired MMA fighters, which we all think is ridiculous. But it was also really cool because at Jake Paul's first big boxing event, we got a chance to see Mike Tyson fight against Roy Jones Jr.
That's
No
right,
one
yeah.
thought that was ever going to happen again.
Yeah.
And it made me feel good to see Mike Tyson and Roy Jones on the TV again. Because
That's
I used to watch those fighters when I was a kid,
Yep. So did I.
So like growing up and seeing all of that, that's where we're at now. And these guys have multi 9-figure companies that are producing revenue, and they're doing it off of attention and making viral videos and backing it with the product that they have to sell. And so like it's cool that you've probably seen like 3 of these waves, if not 2.
We did. I've definitely seen 3 of those, yeah, and it's great the way you've actually explained it. It's the changes, and people always say, do you see improvements with these changes that we go through? And we do. We see lots of benefits. Where there's obviously challenges, there's also benefits. It benefits many people, millions of people. But the evolution of human society in itself is a great thing, because
Yep.
where we were and where we are today is obviously a phenomenal story. Where we're going, who knows?
Who knows?
But we've got all the tools to achieve whatever it is that we need to achieve as humans, which which is great.
Having now like had that experience
Yeah.
at that C-suite level managing those companies,
Yeah.
that's just like insane to me. What did that experience allow you to do? I mean, I'm guessing there was a point where you had to leave the company.
Yeah, there was lots of things. So, I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try and
It's all
shorten it
good.
as much as possible. But
Let's have fun,
in
man.
2003 was really the change for me, because there was a change in legislation in the UK within the debt industry, and having been out of the debt collection industry for many years, because that's where I started, I took it upon myself to try my entrepreneurial hand and open my own business. And everyone at the time said, you shouldn't be doing this. You know, you've got a great job, great position, great salary, et cetera, et cetera. Why are you going to give all of that up to go and do something? But you know what we like. We like challenges. You have to be challenged. A great job, great salary is a great thing, but that's not enough. When you are someone that's ambitious, someone that wants to provide for people, create opportunities, et cetera, you can't do that at that level. You can to a degree, but not to the level that you want to do it, based in what your beliefs are. So I took it upon myself to start my first business. It was a company called CFS, and I was told I was crazy. It started, first 6-7 months was really difficult. I was on my own, took out a little office, maybe a quarter of this space here. And I was on my own, eventually found 2 or 3 clients. Anyway, fast forward 3 years later, 180 staff, 12.5 million turnover, et cetera, et cetera. So the story goes on from there. And that was my first real experience to, understanding business, trying to deal with every challenge, rolling around underneath desks, trying to connect PCs at the time. It was like that. You know the deal when you start opening businesses.
Yeah.
And then that just helped me open other businesses and get involved in different ventures, etc.
One of the things you mentioned to me off the camera was you said you try to cap yourself at 5,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And I love that. Can you kind of reiterate on that?
Yeah, definitely. There's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so much that you can do. And I know there's a lot of speakers out there now that are trying to say, try and get your time back. If you're a real business person, there's never enough time in the day. And the reason being is you'll always have to give an element of something to that business.
Yep.
And that to me is where I cap it at 5. I have 5 children, so that's a great number, 5, and 5 businesses. And the way I look at it is that if I can cap it at 5 and give back to my family, where I took that time away when I was younger, then I've achieved that sense of goal that I've always aimed for.
Man, 5 children, 5 businesses. I love that. It's one for each of them, in the event that anything crazy happens, and God forbid that. But I look at it the same way. I got 1 kid. I told myself I got to make 10 for you, and it's good. It's like kids to me, a lot of people, man, when they have these kids, they think like, and this is mostly, I think, an American thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like people get scared to have a kid, bro.
Oh, it's actually worldwide now, believe it or not. In Italy, I don't know if you know this, but in Italy, it's one of the countries that's having the least amount of kids now. Mm-hmm. And they're actually saying, Elon Musk actually brought out there was an article where he said that he doesn't believe Italy will be around in 50 years' time because of the lack of children that are being born in the country.
Oh, my Lord.
And it literally is that people are scared, well, we can't afford to. I mean, my philosophy has always been this. We had grandparents and great-grandparents where they had 9, 10, 11 kids in a family. And these guys had it a lot tougher than what we had it. And for me, I always say, if you can feed 1, you can feed 2. And if you can feed 2, you can feed 3. And the numbers go on. You will always find a way to be able to provide for your family. Mm-hmm. If you've got the desire to do it, you can do it.
See, and I love that, man. I think family and kids are drivers, and people don't understand that. And even regardless what your standpoint is on your family, because I know for a lot of people, they might not have family, Yeah. Like I've talked to this gal, she makes my food, and her name's Ashley, and her and I had a heart-to-heart conversation because she was coming in here and I was telling her how I'm coming off of a 10-year breakup, and it's been tough, but she also went through one too, and hers was 4 years. And so we were just meshing, going back and forth, talking, giving each other advice and stuff. And she was telling me that she hasn't had anybody to lean on whatsoever. She said she lost her mom to cancer, and her dad got depressed and then fell into food and alcohol and ended up becoming obese, and then he died of a heart attack by the time she was 16. So 13 lost her mom, 16 lost her dad. And her family is just her grandparents, but they're too old, really, And with them, she now takes care of her grandparents while she watches over her big brother. And so it's like, damn, like people sometimes go through things and they have no one to lean on.
Yep.
And that's a hard thing to do.
Very difficult.
And it's also difficult in business because business is like that. And you're getting business, and I'll be real with you, right? In business, you're going to learn who's your friends and family, like real easily, real quick.
Very quick.
And it ain't always blood. It might even be people like Rico just meeting you and then instant connection and boom, this is someone that you can call if you need something. Like I just have a feeling I can call you for advice, even when we weren't making money.
No, it's not even about money anymore.
It
now.
isn't.
It's not. It's about helping people. Genuinely, it really is.
It is. And so, like, you got to think about this for a second. When you win the lottery, right, the people around you, they'll say, we won the lottery, right? And those are all the people that may support you, or so you think. But if you file for bankruptcy in one of your companies, Quentin filed for bankruptcy. You know what I mean? That's different. Now it's like, where was that energy when we lost?
When we went,
See, people want to reign with you like you're a king, but they don't want to go through the rain with you. Like when there's a storm.
Completely agree with you. We were just talking about the story of getting that business to the level, my first entrepreneurial experience, and then that allowed me to try different things. And then in 2009, I'm not going to touch on that story, but there was a tragic thing that happened in my life, which not only changed my perspective of what dedication I had towards my businesses, but what dedication I had towards my family. Because you know yourself, when you're engrossed in business, your time is of the essence within a company, because you have to achieve certain things in certain time frames. And I did miss part of my elder children growing up. And when this scenario happened in 2009, it was a reality check of, I really need to align myself to what are my beliefs going forward. What is it I'm trying to achieve here, and why am I trying to achieve it? And that's where it really changed for me. So I, got rid of my business at that moment in time, dedicated a little bit of time to the scenario that was there, the situation that was, that appeared upon us as a family. And then within 12 months, that situation became better, which was phenomenal. And then it scaled from there. And at that point, I was getting contacted by business owners, small, medium, and large, just asking for advice.
Wow.
And how can we do this? And can you help us with that? And what do you think we should do here? And et cetera, et cetera. So that was my sort of turning point, where I really thought, I've got a specific skill set and I need to utilize that skill set, not to make money, but to actually help as many people as possible, which then took me on to the Middle East at that point, which obviously we touched on before.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I talk about this on the podcast before, right? But there was this farmer, and I'm going to say it again on this one, because it's just such a great story. And for some of you guys, this might be the first time you have ever heard it, but there was this farmer, and every single year he won this reward for the best grown crop. And so the county sent over a news reporter to go and talk to this guy and ask him what made his corn so special, right? And the lady walks up to him and she asks him, he says, hey, what makes your corn so special? And he smiles, he said, I share my seeds with my neighbors. And it's like, what? And she's like, why would you do that? Wouldn't you be afraid that your neighbor's going to grow better corn than you? And he said, even bigger, he said, no, it's not like that. You see, if my neighbors are to grow inferior corn, cross-pollination picks up from crop to crop and swirls that around my corn, devaluing what I'm growing in my own yard.
That's a
so
great story.
I am to grow great corn, I must first share my seeds with my neighbors. Because literally, this is also with our lives. The glory of one person is bound by what he's capable of doing for other people. And I live my life by that story, man.
Absolutely.
It's impact first, and then the income comes. And you really don't even know who's going to be that person that's going to change your life. And you realize that, like, in business especially, you're one connection away from an entirely different life.
It's a different journey.
It's like never ending,
I think what's really interesting in what you just said now, one of the challenges that I struggle with is there's so many, human society now believes that, competition is a bad thing. And it really isn't. If everyone actually embraced competition, I think we would have a better working environment, we would have better businesses, and we would probably will have a better life as well. And we're so keen on pushing things and people away and saying, no, I'm not going to let that secret out. It's not a secret. There's 8 billion people in this planet. And I always say there's 8 billion people. If you think that someone's not come up with an idea that you're probably thinking of at this moment in time, you're sadly mistaken. What you really need to be thinking is, out of all of these ideas, what can I actually turn and make something better than what it is. And then at that point is where you're going to get the real improvement and the real benefit.
What do you think is the most valuable thing that you learned from being a C-suite and just now business owner, entrepreneur? Like, really?
Yeah, so because of my journey, I'm a people's person.
Yeah.
So I've had over 6,000 people work for me over the last 20 years. And, I've managed to probably save, a large proportion of those people's lives in jobs.
Wow.
So my speciality over the last 15 years has been around restructuring businesses and business turnarounds and business growth. So those three areas, which people say, well, that's probably all businesses. No, it's not, because there's a lot of businesses, from whether it's a one-man show or a 500 employee company where they go through hardship. And unfortunately, there's a lot of those companies that start declining, and the current team in those organizations don't have the ability to make changes or don't move fast enough. So then that's where I would go in and take the business over, restructure it, put it back on its feet, and then that saves jobs. That's the only reason why I've ever been doing it. For me, it's 6,000, not 6,000 people, it's 6,000 families. That's people that, have someone behind them that they're trying to feed, keep a roof over their head, et cetera, and that's what's super important to me. That's what I've been working for since probably 2009. So yeah, it's a real journey. And what I was saying before with regards to the story, I then went off to the Middle East, and my first exposure to something that you touched on before, which was, slavery, which is a horrible word to use, but it does still happen in some parts of the world. And I went over to fix a business in the Middle East, which was owned by a royal family member. And this business had been around for over 70 years. I think in 1980, this business was voted the second largest company in the world with over $1 billion turnover in 1980.
Oh, wow.
And due to what happens when families involved in business has been passed down by generation. And once, the great granddad's gone, and then you've got the granddad, and then, it's the children that take over, and there's impact in those businesses. This business had gone all the way down to about 125 million, with about $8 to $9 million worth of losses every year. So massive losses, and they needed someone to help them, and 360 employees. So I took the business on, and it took me about 14 months to fix it. But I fixed it. Yeah.
Well, okay, you're gonna have to go into how you fixed this, man.
It was challenging. It was challenging. There was a lot of staff, a lot of problems, operational problems, offering. There's so many different elements, and unfortunately, there was 6 people that were stealing. They're still in prison today.
Wow.
I hate people that steal. And we found them. I had to put an investigation team in. We found them. We got them, put them in jail, and it was a long story on that as well. I'll have to tell you another day.
No, you're fine.
But the business was back on its feet by 2013.
Producing income again, like on a profitable?
Back to profit. Yep.
That's beautiful.
Kept the same level of revenue, back to profit. Not many people lost their job. And some of the challenges in those organizations when you go in is that so the way you work is you go in, you take it over as, a GM or a C-suite, whatever it is you want to be, and you start implementing changes. But like anything, if you put too much weight on a ship, what does it do? It starts sinking.
Yep.
So the way you do it is you start implementing changes in a structured and a timely manner. And what that allows you to do is say, right, I've put 3, 4, 5 changes, now I need to stop. Let those embed in, and then you review again. And 2 things happen there. There's people that come along and like those changes, but as we know, not all human beings like change, and then there's people that don't like change, and they start pushing back on those changes, coming forward, and quite quickly you can see who's going to be the challenge in the organization, and who's going to stop you or trying to stop you from making those changes happen for the better. And I remember many conversations with people where they'll come in and they'll say, well, I don't think we should be doing this, and I understand you don't think that, but I wouldn't be here if what you were thinking was right, because you've been here for 5 years and it's not working. So, that's not to be rude. That's just to make you understand that we have to go this way. Otherwise, all of these people are going to lose their job. So, and by the time people understand that, they're either on board and they're coming with you on this, rowing this ship, or they're jumping ship.
So you literally go in, and one of the first things that you do is you make big changes in the standard operational part of what its day-to-day looks like. Yep. And essentially that holds them accountable. So the ones that are aligned with the organization stay, and the ones that aren't immediately get like pushed out?
Well, it's for me. It's I don't want to push anyone out.
Yeah.
What I want to do is I want to keep these people, and if it means that me and my team, and when I say me and my team, the senior management team needs to train you to be part of that organization, that's what we'll do.
I see.
But if at that point after the training you're still in that situation and that mindset where really this is not for you, then there's nothing else that we can do. So I can say, you know, out of all of these companies that we've done this for, and there's been lots over the years, we've really only lost you know minimal numbers compared to the number of people that were working in these organizations.
Man, dude, Rico, this is just a crazy convo, dude.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm finding out so many things about you. I've never had someone on the show like you. I'll be honest.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I've interviewed some fucking badass people, man.
Oh, I've
got
seen
some
them.
people that are here that have sat in the same chair that you're sitting in that have just talked about insane things that they were doing, man. And you know, we've had weight loss guys. My friend Anthony, he actually lost 400 pounds. He was on the show.
Oh, amazing.
And he was on Steve Harvey's show too. So like, he's been on TV. He's a national celebrity. He's been on fitness magazines for his weight loss journey. And then we had my friend Digital Jeff, who was like a 80s retro AI guy. Talked about how he literally runs companies that are fully artificially intelligence like represented.
That's crazy.
Even if you call and you talk to a sales rep, you're talking to an AI. Like, that's crazy to me, you know?
It
but
is.
Jeff was really cool. But as far as like what you've been doing, and you are doing big business, right? That's
We
big
are,
business.
yeah. I mean, there's also small businesses, and this is what I really like about it. There's a whole spectrum. So I've had businesses where there's maybe 5 employees, and I've had businesses where there's 500 employees.
Wow.
So it's the beauty of it is that the functionality inside of an organization is very, very similar. You know, whether you're selling a product or a service, it's really understanding where that aligns with what the demand is. And then the structure inside is, you know the story. You have many businesses.
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to market it? How are you going to sell it? How are you going to provide customer services? How are you going to invoice people? How are you going to manage your staff, et cetera, et cetera? So those fundamentals are there for everyone. And I always say it's about building foundations. You don't build a house without building foundations, and it's the same in business.
I love it. And sometimes you got to dig deep into the ground to fix the foundation too.
Exactly.
So it's like even deeper than that.
Yeah.
And you know, like with business, man, I've ran a company into the ground recently, bro. And it was so it's very unfortunate when things like this happen, because, you know, you have people that invest, you have people that lose money, and then next thing you know, everybody says that XYZ, and there's negativity. And since you have a brand, it's like a big fucking deal. And I get it, you know, like I understand. I think people have a right to be upset when they lose money, but it's not like your heart was in the wrong place.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes the economy of a company changes so quickly, the company doesn't get a chance to restructure and adjust.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, I started a company and I scaled it to about 500 employees. And it was a company in a third world country. So we built this thing out in the Philippines.
Yeah.
I have another one now that I just got done rebuilding. And I
Excellent.
took the mistakes from the last one and I married it to this one and redid the whole thing, brand and
Yeah.
everything. And so, you know, what happened at the last one is we were reliant on an economy that we didn't have full control of, but we didn't factor in all of the potential risks that were involved. Not saying that we didn't factor them in. We knew that they were there, but we didn't think that they were going to pop off as violently as they did. Overnight, the entire company went belly up. I had about 300 employees that were running multiple different types of businesses. And these businesses were all structured around selling products online. And so as that business turned and churned, you know, the actual company, the platform that we were utilizing to make that happen, just decided to shut its doors on all of our businesses. Immediately, almost every single company that we were managing, all of them got shut down.
That's crazy.
It happened within one day. I had never seen 300 businesses get shut down in one day. And it was like a big deal.
That's scary.
It was super scary. We had to literally release all of our staff almost like immediately. It was devastating. And these were people that were so dependent on our company. You know, they started posting online and bashing the organization and bashing us and, you know, talking about all kinds of stuff, saying that we were being unfair, but we really had maximized our reserves. And there was a point in time where the business was hemorrhaging that I didn't do anything to stop it because I thought that we could stabilize it. But once it hemorrhaged, it bled about, I'd say, $6 million. And when that happened, the whole company imploded and boom, everything went to shit.
And this is what I normally try and stop, is that from happening. Yeah, whether it's a one-man show or whether it's 500, 600, 700 people or 1,000 or 5,000, whatever that number is, because we know, and you know firsthand what the impact is. You know, it's devastating. The biggest problem is, and as you said, people started posting information and whatever else. People at that moment in time work on emotions.
Yep.
They're not. There's always the 80-20 rule. I don't know if if you've ever heard of that rule.
Break it down.
You know, to me, the 80-20 rule is that you have to think with your mind first. So if you're making decisions, especially in business, based on emotions, forget it. It's not going to happen. You may have a little bit of success, but in reality, is most probably those things won't last. Where if it's 80-20, it will work for you. I always say we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, a brain, and a mouth for a reason. You know, we listen, we see, we process, and then we open our mouth, engage and open. And if we work on those bases there, I think we would get a lot further in life as human society.
Man, Rico, holy shit. You know, and you're I think you're absolutely right, man, because in that business, my emotions were tied to it because I built it from the ground up and scaled it over 4 years. And I got it to a point where it was producing $12 to $13 million annually is the most amount of money I've ever made in my life. You know, so getting to an 8-figure level to me was like my birthright. It was something that I wanted so badly.
Achievement. Yeah.
And I was very happy about it. And I'm talking gross revenue. It's not like I took all of that home, but the company was so structured, so flamboyant. We had made the news in the Philippines, you know, and we were getting interviewed by literally the Oprah Winfrey of the Philippines.
Yeah.
So like people knew us. They were knocking on our doors to get jobs at our company, and we were a virtual staffing agency. Like it was a big deal for what it was that we were doing. Having taken those mistakes though, and then fixing them, if there's anything I can tell you, Rico, that I'm so fucking proud of, is that I know how to solve a $13 million problem now.
Which is amazing.
It is. And who can say that?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people.
Not a lot of people.
I took that business, restructured it completely, and I got it operational and back up and running again.
Yep.
It doesn't produce nowhere near the amount of income that it used to, but I'm getting there again.
Yep.
And it's actually happening faster because this new company is about 6 months alive.
Okay.
We're already at 400 employees again, 2 offices, commercial buildings that we own. And we have created multiple different types of products and services using standard operating procedures that I created over here. And all of the quotas and systems and processes that were developed here are now married into the new company. And it's proofed now. Like I know the mistakes that can be made.
You know
now,
what was there.
you know, and I'm able to do it again. And so, you know, I'm on the up and up with that, you know, so you guys know, if you're watching this, man, I wear my business and my heart on my sleeve.
You should as well.
You know, and so like definitely. I talk about this stuff, not so that you guys can think, oh, woe is me. I talk about it because I know for a fact that there's someone out there that may have had a business implode and they might think that their whole life is over.
Yep.
Think about the guy that just wanted to buy his wife lingerie, right? And he didn't want to feel nervous when he did it. And so he started his own lingerie business for his wife and then sold the business for $3 million, right? And then fell into a depression. And that company, whoever bought it, went and created it into a multi-billion-dollar organization. He jumped off the Golden State Bridge, this guy. And the business that I'm talking about is Victoria's Secret.
Yep.
It's crazy to think about this, right? And so, guys, we're not there. We have the tools and resources where we can elevate. That guy could have gone and created a whole nother business model. He had already had a huge reputation in the lingerie business. And now, I mean, I'll tell you, man, there ain't no bridge and the water underneath it is pretty goddamn cold. So you're better off scrapping what you got here and restarting again, and you take the lessons that you learned from this failure in the business and you drive it into the next thing. And I promise you, the next thing will work because now you understand what could go wrong.
Exactly.
And you can identify those things.
You try and prevent these situations, definitely. And it's funny you should say that because I own one of those businesses as well, and I have for many years been involved in that type of market space just because in Europe and other parts of the world, you've probably heard the terminology BPO, business process outsourcing.
Exactly,
So now the new terminology is VA. I mean, my business back in 2003 and 4 was an outsourcing service because it was credit control, it was, you know, financing, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all it was. You know, we were doing services for other companies.
Yeah.
And it's a different terminology that we use. Actually, one of my a very good friend of mine who started his career at the same time as me is now the CEO and actually part owner, majority shareholder in one of the largest BPO companies in the world, and they've got about 7,000 agents and turnover around about 75 million. And it's just growing substantially. I mean, they're all over the world now. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Man. That's amazing. Dude, Rico, with all of the stuff that you've been able to go through in your life, man, and everything that you've experienced, what do you think is the most valuable lesson that you've learned just being involved with so many different industries and so many different people and businesses?
Yeah, one of the things I think I've learned the most is really to try and give back to people as much as you can. And I know a lot of people say that, but the reality is giving back without people noticing that you're giving back, I think is probably the most important thing. People always say, well, if I employ someone to do a specific role, they should know what they're doing. No, not necessarily. If I'm employing someone, under a specific role, whether it be, a marketing manager or an operations manager, wherever their role may be, they know what to do based on what they've learned over the years, but they don't know what it is that you want them to do. And the reality is you need to put that time and effort into these people. It doesn't matter how big that organization is, whether it's a one-man person or 1,000 people. And obviously you can't go around to 1,000 people all the time, but you do have managers that can understand what it is that your message is, and you need to lead by example. And I think that's the most important, the most important message, I would say.
Man, dude, what an amazing podcast, bro. This has been so awesome. This is my longest conversation that I've had with you.
It is indeed.
Yeah, aside from what we chopped it up before we got on the show. But man, Rico, for everybody that's watching, dude, how can they get a hold of you? How can they follow you and be a part of your journey?
Just Rico Dinolfi. That's it. RICO-DINOLFI. I'm on Instagram and everywhere else, but I really appreciate you having me on the show, and it's been great to actually spend some time together because last time it was very rush.
It was. There was a lot, and Brent moves fast,
Yeah,
I had a good time there. We ate steak and everything, and now we're here, and I appreciate you flying in and being a part of my show, man.
Really appreciate your time.
Guys, y'all make sure you follow my buddy Rico. If you got value from the show, again, share this episode, all right? And again, if you guys want to reach out to him, this dude's full of knowledge. I'm sure some of y'all out there may need some help with growing and sustaining your company and stabilizing it. This is the guy that you want to be connected with.
Thank you.
All right? So I'll see you guys on the next one. Let's get it.
Thanks.
That was awesome.